Mark Rogers TV talking Tennessee football with Mike Laval from Last Word on College Football. Please join him right there for coverage on Tennessee football on a regular basis, and specifically after the games, check out the game grades as Mike runs those down for each and every game, and should be an interesting read for the Florida game in particular, with the Vols going down 26-20 in the SEC opener. So you mentioned Butch Jones' stay at Tennessee and some of the heartbreaks of the past. Certainly the Florida game of 2015 in the Swamp was more directly tied to Jones' management of the game, time management, game management, this being more of a reflection possibly of players making mistakes on the field that could be related to coaching overall, if you're following my line of thinking. So do you see the breakdowns being a little bit different? Dormady with the 3 picks, the 3 missed field goals, more missed opportunities that maybe speak to lack of preparation versus what we've seen the breakdowns be in the past in regards to the game management category.
Yeah, you can certainly make the argument that that loss wasn't entirely on the coaches. The receivers particularly looked like they weren't prepared for the game. A lot of routes were stopped short, and a lot of routes were just plain old wrong routes. You'll see Josh Smith in the first quarter goes out on a 25-yard route and then cuts and breaks to the left, and right out of his break he's out of bounds. It had to be the wrong route. It just had to be, unless you're trying to complete a pass 5 yards out of bounds. So you can say there was a lot of lack of execution there, but you're coming off Indiana State, and look, this is Butch Jones's 5th season. The team cannot show up against Florida, Tennessee's number 2 rival at this point in time. Maybe not historically, but since in the last 20 years, Tennessee's 2nd biggest rival, and arguably their biggest rival. You cannot show up in the 3rd week of the season and execute that poorly. So yeah, the players definitely own some of that, but the coaches have to own the preparation for that. And this is not the first time we've seen that. And the other thing about the coaches, it just kind of came out, very conservative to begin with. The players kind of acted that way. Not very aggressive to open the game, either in action or in play calling. But you talked about the 2015 game in Gainesville. Then you go back to the 2014 game in Knoxville. Tennessee loses on a last-second field goal, I believe, a 12-9 game or a 10-9 game there in Knoxville. So here's the thing. It just Tennessee continues to find a way to lose on the big stages. They've had a little bit of success. Georgia Tech this season. Georgia last season, Florida last season. So Tennessee fans think they're getting to the breakthrough, and then there's a regression. This game was clearly a regression. Tennessee should be celebrating their 4th straight victory over Florida. What separates a championship team from a non-championship team is they find ways to win instead of finding ways to lose. And that's what this team has done over the last 3 years. It's found a way to lose. It found a way to lose against Oklahoma. It found a way to lose against Alabama 2 years ago. And it found a way to lose to Florida 3 out of the past 4 years.
Mike Laval joining us from Last Word on College Football to talk Tennessee in the aftermath of course, the loss at Florida in the SEC opener 26-20 on the Hail Mary play from Franks to Cleveland. Mike, to extend that line of thinking and conversation, the frustration for Tennessee fans, and I think that you've been extremely fair. You've not been a Tennessee apologist, but you've been extremely fair, probably more so than a lot of people out there that have been detractors of Butch Jones. But you have certainly credited and recognized the progress in the program since he took over. But now they're at a point, as you just stated, that the frustration has to be, okay, there's not a giant in the division. There's not Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State in the division that it's at the top of its game as a program. Tennessee's pretty much on the same plane as Georgia and Florida right now in regards to wins and losses and talent and level of play. They're basically top 15 to top 25 programs right now. I'm not talking historically in regards to the performance on the field. So they're not trying to take down a giant. They are losing games against equally talented teams. And it's just got to be frustrating, again, like you say, to continue to fail on the big stage.
Yeah, Mark, if you take a step back, and I try to take a step back and see it from a holistic picture. Yesterday, I'll be honest with you, yesterday just felt like the beginning of the end of the Jones era. And, I appreciate the fact that you think I've been pretty fair and pretty honest. In the Vol Nation, that you kind of have what they call the sunshine pumpers and the nega balls, kind of the two camps. And it really centers around Butch Jones. That's really the central issue of debate amongst Volunteer fans. But, as I stepped back yesterday after I let out a little bit of frustration, it just felt like yesterday's game was the beginning of the end of the Jones era. We're in the 5th season. He's 1-3 of the last 4 years against Florida. And I'll be honest with you, I think we're more talented than Florida over the last, at least the last 3 years, and probably the last 4 years. The more talented team, and we're 1-3. And I really think we should be 4-0, and we're 1-3. We'd be happy with 3-1, but we're 1-3 against Florida. 2 years ago, we lost 4 fourth-quarter leads, and those were our 4 losses. We found a way to lose to South Carolina last year, came out completely flat. Found a way to lose to Vanderbilt last year. Gave up a ton of yards to Vanderbilt in that last game of the season. Took Texas A&M to overtime. Again, found another way to lose there, throwing a middle post route for an interception in the overtime period there. So, you step back from the previous season, 2015, 2016, it feels like you're making progress. At this point, 2 seasons in a row of 9-4, you come back, you step back from yesterday, you got to think we're probably not going to beat Georgia. Very talented team, 10 guys returning on defense, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. They're probably going to put up a lot of running yards on us. We're not going to beat Alabama. You look at LSU, talented team. They're coming in Knoxville. You got a chance there. But then you look at Vanderbilt, beat Kansas State yesterday, looked really sharp doing it. Kentucky's a good team. I think they're going to give Florida a ball game next week. You got to look at the streak possibly ending. The point is, it's kind of hard to see Tennessee winning more than 7 games in this season as we stand now after the Florida loss. So that'll be a 2-game regression from last season. So and then you 7 wins, you go 7-5 in the regular season. Let's see what kind of bowl you get. There's a chance Tennessee goes 7-6 this season. That would be a tremendous regression. It's kind of hard to see them winning more than 7 games in the regular season. And so then all that momentum that you feel coming out of 2015 and 2016, when you step back and you see progress, now for the first time you see regression coupled with the disappointing losses. 3 disappointing losses to Florida, a disappointing loss to Georgia a couple years ago, and 2 disappointing losses last season in South Carolina and Vanderbilt. So when I stepped back last night after I had a couple hours to get over that, or to heal from that loss, it just seems like last night was the beginning of the end of the Jones era. You got to think the athletic director is kind of plotting his strategy for how do we get out of this situation without too much harm to the program. It's probably going to be another 1.5 years in this era. His buyout's huge. Certainly we're not going to make a change in this season. Unlikely we'll make a change after the season. But you got to think that Jones coaching next season, he's probably going to be like a lame duck president. The election's already happened. I think everybody kind of knows the fate. If we go 7-5 in the regular season this year, everybody knows that next year is probably his last season unless he turns in a 10-win season. So you got to think the athletic director, John Curry, right now, this is going to be his first big test as athletic director. He's brand new. The chancellor is brand new as well. You got to think right now they're trying to map out their strategy of how they extricate themselves from the Jones era without doing too much harm to the program. I just think when you step back after the loss to Florida yesterday, that's just how it feels. That we've entered the beginning of the end of the Jones era.
Yeah, to your point in regards to the Florida talent comparison, you would have to, and this is a very rough barometer, but Florida's had the better defense in the last 3 or 4 years, but not substantially. Florida's had like maybe an 8 or an 8.5 on a scale of 1 to 10, and Tennessee's been more, except for the injuries taking hold late last season, more in the 7 range. But the Tennessee offense has been more like a 7, 7.5, and the Florida offense has been abysmal most of the time at a 3.5 and a 4, and you had a franchise type quarterback over the last few years, while Florida has not, and have recruited better than Florida. So you would think that that would have taken hold at some point, but it has yet to do so. And nobody has the perfect perspective on any situation, but you basically evaluate the resources of the program, where you're coming from, what the reasonable expectations are, and draw a line in the sand in regards to, okay, at what point does the disappointment show a trend, show a repeated trend that doesn't seem like it's turning around, and maybe you've gotten to that point with the Vols in the SEC Eastern Division?